Hello, I'm MBX Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography of Toycat for you all. It's everyone's second channel series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today's video is going to be an extra special one, or the opposite of special, depending on which way you want to look at it, because I'm going to be doing a kind of recap of all of the ones we've done so far, because I've done a bunch of these geography videos talking about various parts of the world, and a lot of people have, came in and watched them, enjoyed them, and I think that's amazing, the fact that either people have enjoyed them or they've learned something. I think that's all good stuff. However, every now and then, because I talk about such broad subjects sometimes, I'll be talking about something tangentially related to what I'm actually, trying to drive home the point on, and I'll make a mistake in the way I say it, or I'll say something a bit misleadingly, or even worse, every now and then I say something that's the exact opposite of the real truth, and I figured in today's video, why not correct all of those mistakes, because I don't like making mistakes on the internet, and here is the fix for all of those, just in case you have watched all of them so far, or you watched one, you're like, oh, that fact was wrong. I actually do know, it's just there's no way to correct videos on the internet, so here's the second best thing I can do. Hopefully you do enjoy it. Let's get straight into it. So let's start with the first mistake, which I don't really think is a mistake, because although it is technically a bit misleading, the Mercator Projection, which is what you're seeing right now, this Google Maps view, is technically not a good scale of the Earth. It's just the best one we have, because the actual Earth, if you look at a globe, looks like this. So as you can see, Africa is actually this size, and Greenland is actually this size, as opposed to the other way around, where Greenland looks like it's basically the same size as Africa. This is because it distorts the poles to make them seem way bigger, and it distorts everything near the equator to make it look a little bit smaller. That's something that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but just in case you're not, that's something I've done. So every single video where I've said a country's big and then pointed to it on this, you might have been misled by that. Again, I try to clarify every single time, like Greenland, not actually that massive, but sometimes if you miss that, then always just bear in mind that when you get towards the poles, on a map like this, it's not showing the true size. Same with Antarctica. Antarctica is actually a relatively small landmass, but because it's at the bottom of the globe, it just looks way bigger than everything else. It looks like this mystical land we just haven't been to yet. So yeah, that is the Mercator, the first mistake. And although, again, most of you are familiar with it, I'm going to still use the Mercator Projection, but now you know that just in case you didn't already, don't. It's bad, and that's something that I think, yeah, again, it's like a basic geography thing that all people who are really into it hate on. So the second big mistake, and I'd say this one is like the truly massive one. I'm like, I just wasn't informed enough, and I thought I was, but I wasn't. And it's to do with Franco. So Franco was the leader of Spain for several decades, in roughly the same period as World War II and the Cold War and stuff like that. He was in there for quite some time, and he was only overthrown, and that's when Spain kind of went back on track. So yeah, he wasn't popular after the fact, and he wasn't popular during the fact, but I mentioned how he was, like a leader of a communist party, or I said he was a communist guy, that's one of the reasons they kind of went downhill. However, I was entirely the opposite of right on that one. So Franco, even though he was a dictator in the same way, someone like Hitler was, or Mussolini, whoever one you say, he was a dictator in a kind of similar way. He was very, very vehemently anti-communist. The way he came to power was in 1936 with there was a war between the communists and his side of things. He just happened to win. I think he wanted a monarchy back, and he made himself the monarchy afterwards. It was crazy stuff. But yeah, basically, he was a very, very heavy fascist slash dictator, and he hated communists. And funny enough, the reason, that hate of communists is the one reason why all the Western leaders after World War II put up with him, because let's let this guy stay in charge, let's give him money, because at least he's not a commie. So yeah, that's a fun little fact about Spain. Made the big mistake, said that he was a communist guy, and he's not. And just in case you want to see what I'm talking about when I say Franco, this man, he's got, I know there's something different about him that you're like, I wasn't picturing that at all when you hear Franco. I mean, what I'm picturing is James Franco up there when I hear Franco, but no, different person entirely. Not obviously, but yeah, basically, I made a mistake there. That's probably the biggest one that I'm like, I wish I hadn't, but just wasn't feeling well from the Spain political scene from the 30s to the 70s. Anyway, next up is to do with Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia is a country that existed until 1990. Well, technically it existed until 2006 as Serbia and Montenegro. But basically it's a country that existed throughout the 20th century and kind of dissolved towards the end of that century. And yeah, basically it's these 6 countries right here, although 7 kind of technically. And I make a mistake every time I talk about it. I'll either, leave country out, or I'll include Albania by accident. And this is because, even though I've looked up a bunch of Yugoslavian stuff, I always get confused towards the south, because Slovenia, I know that's the tip of Yugoslavia, very familiar with the country, been there, really like it, great place, love to go again sometime. Croatia, everyone knows Croatia, so you're like, okay, we're there. Then we got Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is, Croatia's spooning it, so you got that locked down. Then after that, I get a bit confused in my head, and that's where I should, really recheck a Yugoslavic map or something, because Serbia's where things get confusing, because Serbia in the Yugoslavic parliament had 3 votes, or, technically 2 of their provinces, Kosovo and Novi Sad, I think it is, or Vojvodina, I think it is. There's an autonomous province in the north. They both had a vote too, and there was 8 votes total, but only 6 countries. I thought there was 8 countries, and that's why I got confused here, because there's 7 countries that exist now, or 6 technically. There's Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro, and then there's Macedonia. Technically, Kosovo is a country, but only recognized by about 2/3 of the world, which is why so many people, this is like a mistake, but also not a mistake. It's like people who are politically charged. They're like, no, Kosovo is not a country because, my country believes it's bad. But no, Kosovo is like a semi-country. At some point in the future, it will become like a fully fledged one, but it needs to be recognized by, I think it's like Russia, Spain, a bunch of countries like that. So yeah, keep that in mind. 6 countries in the Yugoslavia, and the obvious one is Macedonia, or the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Again, controversial names. Some people hate it whenever you live said. There's a long story behind why. It's because Greece has a region called Macedonia. They don't like the name at all. But yeah, basically the FYROM, that country is like a dead giveaway. If you ever get lost like me, that's the one you can go into there. Also, Albania, entirely unrelated, but most of the people who live in Kosovo and certain parts of some of the other countries are Albanian. So keep that in mind. It's confusing. But that's the story behind that one. So yeah, Yugoslavia, made a mistake with the countries. I left out Macedonia in one of them, and you shouldn't leave out Macedonia. Or the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. What did they do to you? I hate how names get like that. Anyway, with that said, let's move on from those, Yugoslavia, to talking about the Secret Countries of Europe video. I referenced, I went over a whole bunch of tiny countries like, Liechtenstein and stuff like that. And by the way, in that video, I think somewhere in there I mentioned how Switzerland speaks Swiss. They speak Swiss German. It's a dialect of German. Something I actually didn't know till recently. I assumed they spoke all the languages from around them, but they mostly speak Swiss German, which is it's intelligible with German, same with Liechtenstein. Anyway, with that said though, let's also move on from that to other micro countries of Europe I missed. Technically, a lot of people think Luxembourg is one. I'll still defend that it's not. But one that I should have included, even though it doesn't really exist anymore, is Sealand. So I can't show you Sealand on a map. It's roughly here, just to the southwest of Felixstowe. Like literally, it's not on a map even in Google Earth, because it was like not an oil container. It's like it was a tiny army base that turned into a country, the Principality of Sealand. Basically, it didn't exist, but it sort of did because one guy, had a casino there and like printed his own money. It was a very ridiculous thing. However, Sealand since 2000 and the early 2000s, the guy who lived there died. He's named his son as regent of Sealand because it's a monarchy, of course. And he named his son as the regent, but he's never set foot there since. And basically, it doesn't exist as a country, and you can't find it on a map, and it's not recognized by anyone, and it doesn't have territory, and all those things I think make it not a country. Same with the other one that I didn't reference is Liberland, because the people who keep going to Liberland, because it's on one of these little things, they keep being kicked off. And if you're being kicked off and legally you're not allowed to be there, then you can't call it a country, can you? So that's my logic behind not including Liberland and Sealand. But maybe I should have mentioned them. I don't know for sure. But that's a little thing right there. So yeah, with that said, let's move on from all of that mess to North America for a bit. So yeah, with the North America thing, I made a mistake with my wording like 2 or 3 times. Whenever I'm talking about US states, I'm always talking about population, because when it comes down to the political side of things, which is what I was going into with like, oh yeah, California is the biggest state in terms of the population of the total, and DC, for instance, is bigger than Wyoming in terms of the number of people, because that's what makes it so bad that they have more people living. So the point I was making when I said that Washington DC, this thing here, by the way, which is probably where I am as you're seeing this video, this little square right here, I said Washington DC was bigger than Wyoming, which, by the way, you look at the map, no one's making that mistake. No one's like, oh, they're pretty close. What I meant, and what I usually mean, and I'm going to try and fix this and say in terms of population after every time I say it, is that basically Washington DC has more people than Wyoming, and California is the biggest state by population. Then it's Texas and Alaska, even though it's the biggest state overall. And by the way, Mercator again, it's not actually quite so big, but even though Alaska's the biggest state overall, it's like something way near the bottom, like, bottom 10 by population. So keep that in mind with all of that stuff. So, that is, that I made a lot of references to population and size and stuff. Size, in terms of geography, doesn't really matter when you're talking about states relative to each other. Like, more land is nice, but, like, what does land... I guess that's an argument the US has to have over the next few years, and I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm just going to say for now that, like, in terms of when you're talking about the proportion of an overall country, the proportion of an overall country's land doesn't matter as much as the proportion of an overall country's population in terms of how annoyed you're going to feel when X or Y happens. That's all I mean when I say all of that. Jeez, why do I have to clarify? I hate, like, the having to, like, stay so far away from even going near offending territory. But with that said, I made a couple of big mistakes when it came to Canada, much bigger than a wording one, because I said the capital of I said the capital of oh no wait no sorry, Washington D.C. I also made a mistake when I said that I think it will become a new state. It obviously Congress etc. won't become a new state. Congress oh no, I made two mistakes. First of all, I said Washington D.C. didn't have electoral votes. It does have electoral votes, and every single time since they've had them, literally like 50 years now, they've always gone Democratic, and it's been going more and more Democratic. Just as a fun little fact, I don't think any other district or states like that. But yeah, they have free electoral votes, but they don't have the congressmen and the 2 senators they would have if they were a state that entitles them to that vote. So they're a pseudo-state. They have none of the privileges of a state. They have none of the senators, none of the Congress. They have a congressperson, but she can't vote. They have all of that stuff. But then their laws are decided against them, and it's a weird situation. That's why I think they'll become a state. Minus this is the thing that makes everyone go, no, we can't, because Congress had to do it there for a reason. They probably have to make the DC district as it exists now, just the White House, the Congress, all that sort of stuff. Make the federal property part of that, because right now what's happened. It's a long story. I can't get into it because, by the way, cookies just moved past there. It's a long story, but that's I said that it would become a state. I really meant most of it, and key little thing right there that is worth knowing about Washington, D.C. And next, moving on to that, I made a couple of mistakes when it came to Canadian capitals. I said the capital of Quebec was Montreal. If I'm not mistaken, it's Quebec City. So here is Montreal, the largest city. But then there's another thing. I said Quebec. People get offended by that. Apparently, it's Quebec. So Quebec City is supposedly the capital instead, and the capital of the entire country is not Toronto. It's actually Ottawa. Ottawa is the capital. It's not the largest city, but it is like in between Toronto and Montreal, which is a good way to something unity. And Cookie's just like sat on the laptop staring at my clothes for some reason. You can look this way too, you know. Okay, whatever. Anyway, just looking away from me. Offended by the DC thing, clearly. She's just like, oh, why don't they get Senate votes or whatever. But yeah, with that said, oh, the monitor's slightly left line, so you can see the thing on the left here. Anyway, with that said, though, that is Ottawa right there, the capital of the overall Canada. And I don't think Toronto, it might not even be the capital of the province of Ontario. Apparently it is, according to this thing. I thought I had that one mixed up. But yeah, I got the capital of Quebec wrong, and I got the capital of Canada wrong. But everything else I think was just about on point. Minus, I missed out I said Canada was made of 10 or 11 provinces, but I missed out the maritime regions that technically count. So Prince Edward Island, even though it's an island just 146,000 people, it is technically, it's on like an almost equal status to the provinces. Missed it out. You don't want to miss out things because that's bad. And yeah, that's Canada right there. Big place, cool place. Still got the 2 thumbs up to Canada after I've been now. So yeah, as far as other mistakes, there's a lot of them. You make a lot of mistakes over time. All the mistakes I made was to do with Niger. I made a very big point about how it's pronounced Niger and not the other way. But it's actually, in a lot of languages, dialects, and pronunciation, it is Niger, apparently. So the river, I think the river might still be called Niger. Again, I think that's a pronunciation thing. But it's a lot of people like to say it's Niger, Niger. Yeah, Niger, not Niger. But it's definitely not the other one. Although apparently in Dutch it is the other one, as I learned from a comment. So, fun fact about Niger and Nigeria. Oh, yeah, jeez, that's the way it goes. It should be Nigeria, really, but it's not, because the world doesn't need to make sense. Finally, as we come to China at the end here, I referenced how Macau was they got rid of it on purpose when the Carnation Revolution happened. It happened a little bit after. They put the events into motion, I believe. But it didn't happen until, like, China kind of got antsy about it. Same with Hong Kong. And the reason I didn't reference... Oh, sorry. Hong Kong, I made a big mistake, too, because I said the lease ran out in 25 years. There's a 50-year lease. So instead of having, like, 5 years left until, ooh, let's watch out, it's something like 27 years left. So, if you wanted to visit Hong Kong, you got your lifetime until it becomes really problematic. And keep that in mind, because, yeah, there was some tense stuff at the end of the British Empire. Kind of sad, but I guess that's a thing. I think in the China-Taiwan video, I didn't mess anything up too massively besides that, so good news on that front. I once called Korea an island and then didn't correct it. It's a peninsula, not an island. It kind of looks like an island if you like this. It was just a massive mistake. Really big one at the time. Apparently, I didn't know my. I honestly, this is embarrassing to admit. I honestly thought Korea and Taiwan, I thought that was Korea right there for the longest time, because I was ignorant with maps, and now I've improved. I'll just admit that straight up. Finally, we have Russia, which in my pretty big video didn't show the true shape on a map, and as you can see, because the globe is curved, Russia is a lot more curved than you might figure. which is something you might not have realized. And it's also not quite as big as it looks on the map normally. It's still the biggest country in the world, but not quite, quite the same size it used to be. And finally, I said at one point that I said that Turkmenistan and another one were the only double landlocked countries. The only double landlocked countries are Liechtenstein, German-speaking Liechtenstein, this thing right here, and which, by the way, is a pain to visit. I wanted to go there recently, but it's like, you gotta go through Germany into Switzerland, basically. Anyway, but yeah, that's a thing. But also Uzbekistan, the only two double landlocked countries where every country surrounding them is landlocked. So to get goods from them to any other country via sea, it has to go through 2 orders of countries at least. So yeah, that said, hope you all enjoyed today's video. Those are the mistakes I made. Pro tip: don't make mistakes, but if you do make them, it's good to learn from them. I think a lot of people have a thing ingrained in their heads where it's like, what you think now is what you have to think forever because you've said it. Even though I'm on the internet, and even though these are permanent and that sucks, this is what happened, and now you know. Oh, also, wait, one final thing. There's a website called True Size Off you should check out. It's going to crash because it just does in my browser right now. Basically, you can see what a country would look like if it existed in different parts of the world. So, again, oops, something went wrong. I don't know what, like, for some reason it just lasts for like 10 seconds. So we can see, for instance, what, India looks like all the way up there. It's very big. Down here, it's really small. Down here, it's really big because that's how the Mercator Projection works. Fun fact. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Second channel, don't care. Goodbye.